massive change in how society thinks happens, those tools and formulae you have for creating success no longer apply. So you kind of hit a wall.
We're in a different time. You know, the rhythm of life has changed, it is changing. Institutions that were rock solid are crumbling overnight. People are beginning to realize that the norm, the state is different. So if it can be different, then it can be anything.
Everyone can publish. Anyone. You don't need to rely on a publishing house or a record company anymore in order to actually share what you've done with the world. But naturally, the challenge of that is that, there is a saturation. And, for some artists, it's quite difficult to get your voice heard.
It's challenging, and there are so many photographers out there, and over the last 3 years, the supply business has been doing quite well, because people are who had a remote interest in photography, they get redundancy money and they go out and they buy a camera and they're going, I'm going to set up as a photographer and follow their passion. So we've loads of them. They're all over the place, and it's very challenging trying to find your space, your little bit of space that's unique, that's going to allow somebody to buy something off you when they perceive they can do it themselves with their phone camera.
Well, that happened in painting around the 1880s. They figured out how to make tubes of paint. Before that, artists had to grind down colours, mix in oils, dryers. There was a whole science in making colours and in preparing grounds for canvas and all that. And then suddenly tubes of paint arrived and everyone became a painter that wanted to be. So you've loads of people going to art classes with all their tubes of paint, and I'm a painter. Now, it's exactly the same. You can have a lot of people with cameras taking photographs, but that doesn't necessarily mean to make art. Or like anyone can have a recording studio in their home now.
There is a way to always to make money with what you do. I think you just you have to find it, and if you're not satisfied with how you're doing it, I think you have to turn to yourself and just ask yourself, are you going about it the right way? You have to really expect nothing from anybody else but yourself. Like financial success is one thing, and then I suppose creative success is another. And they don't always kind of marry up or go hand in hand. There's compromise in between. And I think it's always about negotiating your own way through that compromise, Sometimes the compromise itself can be part of the creative process. So it can be rewarding. It doesn't have to be a struggle.
You have to see the benefits in all these changes, in the internet and, MP3 technology and the more I just make an effort to adapt, the better things go, and the more I actually love it. I never saw myself as a blogger or a tweeter or even Facebook. It's taken me quite a lot of effort just to adapt and say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get involved in these things and share what I've created, share my music.
Everyone is moving away from the traditional perception that success is money. There's no money anymore, so success is something else.
When you go back then through history and all across the globe, you see that whenever society hits a wall and runs into that paralysis, you tend to get clusters of creative people like Bauhaus or Silicon Valley or the Renaissance, who come together and start to think outside the box and drive growth in a different direction, and things start to happen as a result.
Self-doubt, I mean, self-doubt can be definitely crippling to any artist or individual, you know. Gus, the dog, doesn't suffer from self-doubt. He never questions his identity as a half-collie Saluki when he's in the park amongst other dogs. He just goes about the business of being himself.
Creating any sort of art is kind of it's kind of like you're stepping towards an unknown. I guess if you're going to create something that's not there yet, it's an unknown. You know, how's this going to turn out? And you know, and I think facing any unknown is kind of, you know, it's scary. In the same way that going for a job interview or taking an exam is, you know, you're faced with this question of, do I have what it takes? But I think that's something that actually can be really exciting, that feeling, which comes up over and over and over again.
I think Van Gogh lived in poverty, and so many of the great composers were in poverty all the time, and it didn't stop them. So it's always about believing in what you're doing, and when you do, that's enough to motivate you.
To say, how on earth am I going to, present my song? It will never get heard with all these, because there's so much. But I think that you need to just make an effort and really trust that the people who are interested in what you're creating can and will find it. And that's all you need. I think now more than ever, we live in a time when artists can really experiment and create new paths for building a career, new ways of earning a living. I mean, new ways of collaborating with other artists in ways that we've never had before, you know.
You just got to stay true to who you are, and you got to believe in what it is that you do and how you do it. But I think that if I was saying to somebody who's starting out and they want to become a photographer, you got to be passionate. It doesn't matter about his photography, whatever it is, you got to find what it is that you're passionate about.
I think love first what you do, and let the rest happen around that is what I would try to say, or try to adhere to myself.
When you wake up in the morning time and you're going, Jesus, I don't want to get out of bed, you're in the wrong job.
So, having been prepared to get a job, I think the hardest thing for graduates now is to actually jettison that thinking and imagine that it's possible to be an entrepreneur, which is a very big word and has been always associated with multimillionaires over there, Alan Sugar and Peter Jones and people who've made it and become kind of household names. But really, actually, all it is being brave enough to take a small risk with something that you're passionate about, and it is a ticket to freedom, and it's a ticket to an incredible adventure. And it doesn't have to be forever, but when you're young and you're a recent graduate, you've got a much better chance of having fun on that journey. So I would say to everybody coming out of college, don't be afraid to take internship, find a way of keeping your basic breadline going, and then have an adventure with your work. Don't try to fit into something that may not be there in 20 years. Try to explore the opportunities first.